have run these canyons for 6 million years. I have traveled from the Rocky Mountains to the deserts, through scorching heat and freezing cold, from the land of the dinosaurs to fields of food.
I lend my hand to 7 states, 2 countries, 9 national parks,
and 36 million people across an arid West.
I am not the strongest or the largest, but I am the hardest working.
People love me.
My playfulness,
My beauty.
my power,
My life. But I don't think I can offer any more.
I am tired.
I am tired,
tapped,
and tied. Of the hundreds of major rivers in the world, I am one of the few who no longer kisses the sea.
Battles to harness my soul have been won and lost. Use me wisely, and I will sustain you.
Use me like you have, and I will break. My name
is
Red. The Grand River Red. The American Nile.
The Canyon Maker. I am the Colorado River.
And I am the most endangered river in America.
Hey, how about it? It's a big Monday morning. Here we go, August 18. On this Monday morning, it's good to be back with all of you after a week in the sun on the West Coast. And we've got lots of news this morning. The focus, again, remains on Ferguson, Missouri, where 2 big developments overnight in that tragic shooting of teenager Michael Brown, unarmed teenager, shot and killed by a Ferguson police officer a week ago Saturday. The events over the night, Governor Jay Nixon, who does seem overwhelmed by this crisis and weigh in over his head. His latest is to call out the National Guard to try to restore calm to the streets of Ferguson. And meanwhile, New York Times reporting that the autopsy on the teenager's body shows that he was shot 6 times all in the front of his body, and 2 of them to the head. None of the shots at close range, which again raises the question, why was an unarmed teenager who was not even close to the police officer such a threat that he had to pull out his gun and shoot him 6 times, twice in the head? Clearly a classic case of abuse of authority on the part of that policeman. President Obama is back in the White House for 2 days of meetings. Rick Perry, governor of Texas, vows to fight his indictment for abusing his executive authority, as claimed by one grand jury. And David Gregory may be out of hosting Meet the Press, but he is in the money. Reported this morning that he got $4 million from NBC for leaving peacefully and for vowing not to badmouth the network. $4 million. And reportedly, he's now in conversations with CNN. All of that we'll wrap up for you and deliver it with a bow tied around it, and then get your comments at 866-55-PRESS this Monday morning. Good to have you with us.
This is the Bill Press Show.
You know, sometimes when I'm walking down the street, I'm not necessarily looking out and seeing all these water-wasting lawns and people that aren't as connected to their neighbors and their lives as they could be. I'm walking down the street looking, going, edible oases, rainwater, fed landscape, and just looking at the possibility of these sort of landscapes up and down the streets of neighborhoods and communities all across this world. Small actions do ripple, and they add up and they have a cumulative impact. And so when you're building upon your small mindful actions, you know, you have the confidence and the ability to take on something a little bit greater. So that would be nice. This, in the context of where we're at as a planet with climate change and these really big issues and people that are more disconnected and less skilled than ever, it becomes even more amazing and powerful how much of a solution this is to design these ecological gardens and to come together with shared vision and shared voice. There's never been a time where your choices have mattered more. Doing something as simple as us transforming a landscape creates a model that anybody can look at far and wide, and you're sharing food and connecting and building skills together in your own neighborhood. It's a richer way to live in normal times, but in the new normal of climate change and erratic weather and economic upheaval, it becomes essential. Whether it's me, you, Gandhi, Che, MLK, Willy Wonka, whoever, past, present, or future, the power of our daily actions is all that we have. You know, and like our community said, give me a place to stand and a lever long enough and I'll move the world. And that's what those simple actions do. They move the world every day.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
The National Guard now in the streets of Ferguson, Missouri. Is this what it's going to take to calm things down? What do you say? Hello, everybody. Hey, look who's back. On a Monday, August 18. How about it? Great to see you. Good to be back with you after a week on the West Coast. Got to check things out there, you know. All those forest fires in Oregon and the drought in California. I was worried about both and had to go out and inspect them firsthand. And I can tell you that both the state of Oregon and the state of California are surviving quite well. Thank you. As are all the members of my family. So good to be back with you. And thanks to the whole lineup. Oh, my God. I lost track of how many people. It takes a village.
It does take a village.
It does take a village. So thanks to Carl Frisch and Clinton Yates and Elahi Izadi and Sabrina Siddiqui and, of course, Peter Ogburn for filling in.
Happy to help.
That's a lot of people for not many days. But at any rate, keeping things going in good form here on the Bill Press Show. And it's good to see you today, Peter and Elisa Murphy, right?
The whole team is
here. Elisa was really in charge the whole time.
That is true. Yeah. That is absolutely
no
true.
doubt about that, right? Alicia Murphy, wait a minute, Alicia Cruz. Oh my God!
Go back to bed.
Yeah. It was just I need a script here for you.
Right.
Right. Alicia Cruz on the phones, and what's that guy's name? The videographer.
Oh, we forgot all about him.
Watch out! Cyprian Bolding on the job as always. Yeah, the whole team here. You know, we've been in and out over the summer months, right? There's not many days where the whole team is. It's good to be all back together here.
See how long this lasts.
Right.
Oh, and you weren't even here when Cyprian became a celebrity last week.
Oh no!
On the cover of Sports Illustrated.
Cyprian's on the cover of Sports Illustrated.
Can I see it?
You'll have to see. I'm sure he has a copy with him.
Oh yeah, I'm surprised it was the one pasted on the door as I walked in this morning. All right. Well, we know he's a star. Right?
Yeah, that's right. We've been saying that for a long time.
It's only a matter of time before he was discovered by the talent agents at Sports Illustrated. I want to hear more about that. I actually came back for only one purpose, not really to do the show. I did be back in town for Bill Clinton's birthday.
That's right.
Yeah. I was not here for Barack Obama's birthday, but I can't miss Bill Clinton's birthday. And Kevin Spacey and Hillary were sort of conspiring on what they're going to do for Bill Clinton's birthday. Kevin Spacey in character.
Washington, D.C. is so boring during the summer that I like to entertain myself by, having some fun with my predecessors.
Hello.
Hi, Hill. It's Bill. I just want to make sure you don't forget my birthday's coming up, right?
Yes, I know, Bill.
Do you know what you're getting me yet?
I told you, this is a very personal decision that I will make when I'm ready.
You know what, darling? I'd really love one of those elephants you're always talking about saving, for the backyard in Chappaqua.
Don't you think that could be a little dangerous for our dogs?
Well, what about a baby elephant?
Okay. Hillary, don't try to script her.
Yeah, exactly.
No, this doesn't work. Doesn't work, yeah. Kevin Spacey, okay. Even that was pretty lame, but...
Some people... Look, Hillary Clinton, great leader, great politician. She can't deliver lines the way that, say, Barack Obama does.
Right, yeah.
He can do a good comedy set.
Yeah.
He could do a comedy routine, and he can sell it. I'm not so sure she's got that skill.
Yeah. Stick to your day job, Hill.
Yeah. Right.
All right. Hey, we've got a lot coming up today. It's a very, very busy Monday, August 18. We'll be joined by reporters for The Hill and for the National Journal Hotline and by Wayne Slater from the Dallas Morning News. Joe Cirincione, our foreign policy guru, will be here to talk about the latest in Iraq and in Gaza. And then we'll be joined also by the Honorable James Clyburn from South Carolina and get his comments on what's happening in Ferguson, Missouri. And that's where we will start this morning as well. Looking forward to getting your calls at 866-55-PRESS. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Yes, indeed.
Just still do this.
Yeah, we still do this.
Oh, okay. I didn't know what had changed since I've been gone.
Just a couple of other stories making news. We go first to Canada, where they have seen the success.
Oh, Canada.
They have seen the success of Americans who are trying to legalize and decriminalize marijuana.
All right.
So they're trying to make a push for it there. So what they did, those that are fighting there are those that are fighting to keep it illegal. They went to the group of doctors in Canada, all the big board of doctors, right? They want to get the doctors to say smoking marijuana is bad. Smoking marijuana is bad for you. Turns out the doctors don't agree with that.
Aha.
They went to 4 different boards that all represent doctors all across Canada, and all 4 said, we will not put our stamp of approval on anything saying that smoking pot and marijuana use is bad for you.
Well,
that's all I needed to hear.
Follow the doctors.
Follow the
doctor's orders. Doctor's orders, right.
Exactly. In France, a woman hired 3 workers to do some landscaping. What she wanted to do was level out her garden, and so she hired these men to come do it.
Uh-huh.
In the process, they found $1.2 million worth of gold buried in her garden.
Wow.
Well, I hope... What's the catch here?
Well, what would you do if you were that landscaper? Do you let the homeowner know about it, or do you keep it for yourself?
That's it. Well, I would let the homeowner know, but then the homeowner should give them a little share of the booty.
Well,
but I wonder where this came from. I mean,
well, we're not sure of that, actually.
This is not like gold flakes, like in the.
No, they're gold bars.
Gold bars. Yeah.
Someone buried gold bars there. And so they're trying to figure out who it was because the woman hasn't lived there for very long. But the issue is these workers took the gold bars and didn't tell the homeowner.
Oh.
And now they're in big, big trouble. The police are coming after them and saying it was on her property. It belongs to her. You needed to let her know.
Yeah, but I don't think... I think there's some... The gold didn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Magically.
Yeah.
Somebody robbed a bank somewhere sometime and hid the gold.
Yeah, you're right. I got a bad feeling no one's going to get a big payday out of this one. And we found out it was official last week that David Gregory is not only stepping down as host of Meet the Press, he is leaving NBC altogether. What does that cost? Well, it turns out, according to Page 6, $4 million is what David Gregory was paid to leave NBC, and he signed a contract saying he would not speak out against the network. $4 million hush money. Not such a bad deal. Of course, Chuck Todd will be replacing David Gregory beginning September 7th.
Right. So I have to just say, $4 million. He promised not to badmouth the network.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If they gave him $4 million, right?
Yeah.
I want to make it official. I will walk out of this studio and I will not badmouth Free Speech TV or TawkrTV or any of our great public affiliates around the country.
Wonderful radio affiliates.
All of our wonderful progressive radio stations around the country. I will not badmouth any of them for $4 million.
That's not a bad deal.
I'll do it for $2 million.
There you go.
Any takers here? Come on. Okay. Boy, I'll tell you, the way they dangled David Gregory out there, whatever you think about the job he did as host of Meet the Press, and I don't think he did such a great job, but it was hard to replace Tim Russert also. You've got to say that the way they dangled him out there was just cruel and unfair to anybody to treat him that way.
Cruel.
Yeah,
it was bad to see that happen.
Absolutely. So we'll turn the page, and congratulations to Chuck Todd, who's been on this show many times.
That's right.
And I see him almost every day at the White House. I'm there if he's not, but a good guy, and will do, I think, a good job there. By the way, just to make sure you know about this bit of breaking news, we'll talk about it a little bit later. Julian Assange has announced this morning that he is leaving his sanctuary in the Ecuadorian embassy in London soon. Hasn't left yet. We don't know what that means for his legal status because he's wanted is it Sweden where they're trying to extradite him?
I think a lot of people are.
Yeah, right.
I'm looking for Julian Assange, but yeah,
right. But he's under indictment for alleged sexual abuse. I think it's in Sweden, Norway, one of the Scandinavian countries, and we don't know what that means. But he apparently has decided to leave, or they have told him 2 years is long enough. But
yeah,
you're out. You're on your own. Maybe he'll end up in Moscow with Edward Snowden. We'll have a little, right? Yeah.
I'm surprised he made it that long. Honestly,
I am too.
To be confined in that space for 2 whole years.
But our focus, like the rest of the nation, really starts today back again on Ferguson, Missouri, where since you were all together with us, with Peter on Friday morning, there have been several developments in that case, leading to the most troubling this morning. But let's start with the announcement on Friday, shortly after our show ended, when the chief of police of Ferguson, Missouri, whom I think most people see right now as not a man who's really up to the job, shall we say, and has really poorly handled this situation. But he did announce, as many people were demanding on Friday morning, the name of the police officer. Here is Chief Thomas Jackson.
The officer that was involved in the shooting of Michael Brown was Darren Wilson. He's been a police officer for 6 years, has had no disciplinary action taken against him.
Darren Wilson, white police officer who shot and killed unarmed teenager Michael Brown. At the same time, the police department, God knows why, released a video showing, allegedly, Michael Brown involved in the robbery of a convenience store shortly before he was shot and killed by the police officer. At the same time, the police department, we'll get to that, admitted there was no connection, but here's why he said they released this video.
So we've had this tape for a while, and we had to diligently review the information that was in the tape, determine if there was any other reason to keep it. Anybody else would be charged in a crime, and we had determined that was not going to be the case.
And yeah, but at the same time, there's no doubt in my mind that the reason they released the video was they were trying to smear the person of Michael Brown to show that this was a bad guy, right? Who maybe deserved to be rounded up, deserved to be shot and killed, shot 6 times, as we'll find out. And the police chief readily admitted, however, there was no connection. The police between the robbery and the the arrest, if you will, or the attempted arrest of Michael Brown. The police officer, in other words, had no idea that Michael Brown had just come from this convenience store or was involved in some robbery.
Had nothing to do with it.
Nothing to do with it. Nothing at all. The police officer stopped him allegedly because he was walking in the middle of the street. He had asked him to get out of the street, and the police say Michael Brown refused. Here's the police chief again admitting no connection.
This robbery does not relate to the initial contact between the officer and Michael Brown.
No. I mean, so why release
it? What's the point? Like, what is the point?
No, exactly. And even the governor, Jay Nixon, by the way, who looks, talk about somebody who's in over his head. He may be a Democrat, but he's not doing such a good job on this in this situation. He admitted on This Week yesterday with George Stephanopoulos that he was not happy with the release, didn't think they should have released the video. And the latest is the governor himself has called out the National Guard last night because there was calm in the early evening hours, and then as it got darker, again, there was violence in Ferguson, Missouri. So first they took the situation away from the local police and gave it to the state police by this guy, this head of the state police, Ron Johnson.
Yeah.
He's done an incredible job,
yeah.
I think. And then the latest is they've turned it now over to the National Guard. But the most troubling thing is this morning the New York Times reports that Michael Brown was shot 6 times, twice in the head. This is the findings in the preliminary private autopsy performed on Sunday. One of the bullets entered the top of Mr. Brown's skull, suggesting his head was bent forward when it struck him and caused a fatal injury. Shot 6 times, and none of those shots were at close range, which again raises the question, is even if there was some kind of a struggle, why did the police officer feel that this was the only solution to arrest or to handle
the situation,
to contain the situation, right? Pulling out his gun, shooting him 6 times, twice in the head. I mean, talk about excessive use of police force. Clear case of it, I believe.
It's so ugly. The whole thing is so ugly because, you've got this sad story. Was Michael Brown an angel? Clearly, it looks like he might have been involved in a robbery. Does that mean that he should have been shot down in cold blood? Absolutely not. And all along the way, these police have been distracting and trying to throw the priority somewhere else.
Yeah, right.
Oh, he's a robber. He robbed the store. Oh, we need to bring in the National Guard because these looters are these protesters. Meanwhile, all these people want to know is, why hasn't this police officer been looked at seriously for having used excessive force? That's all. And that hasn't happened. Nothing even close to that.
I got to tell you, this reminds me so much of the Rodney King riots that I lived through in Los Angeles, where yes, there were protests, and yes, they turned into violence, but that violence was triggered by violence on the part of police officers. And then we get to the question about what are they doing with military force that makes the streets of Ferguson, Missouri look like Baghdad, right, or the Gaza Strip. So much to talk about. Your comments, your reflections on all of it, more coming up here. But let's start with your calls at 866-55-PRESS. Talk about Ferguson, Missouri here on this Monday morning.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful?
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand and they don't get it and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university? And,
yeah, people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you know, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies. In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania. Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
This is the Bill Press Show.
27 minutes after the hour in Ferguson, Missouri, the Attorney General of the United States, Eric Holder, has announced that the Justice Department is going to conduct its own autopsy on the body of teenager Michael Brown. Meanwhile, Eric Holder has told local police that the first thing they ought to do is pull away the damn tanks, quote, unquote. Your comments. Willie, calling from Nashville, Tennessee. Willie, what's up?
Hey, yeah, you guys were wondering why did the sheriff release that video on that on Michael Brown?
Yeah,
and I'm just giving you little workings into the mind of Southern attitudes of sheriffs. Is that he did that because he said, hey, well, if I do that, then the people are going to get so mad that they're going to start doing more stuff, and we can bring in more people and cops, and then I can say, hey, see how they're acting? I told you.
Well, who knows why he released it? I just certainly don't think he should have released it. I believe he released it because he said this is going to show this guy was a bad dude.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And so the officer was totally justified in what he did. It didn't work. It backfired. It boomeranged. And I think that we showed that the local police can't be trusted in this situation. Lots more calls coming up. Let's talk about it.
Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Racing dot. I want you to just push the area.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan, big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
Two anti-government, self-described revolutionaries have shot up a pizza restaurant as well as a Walmart in Las Vegas.
The internationally syndicated political series, The David Pakman Show, provides progressive talk, analysis, and interviews with the nation's youngest radio and television host, David Pakman. Find out more and catch up on all the latest episodes by visiting our website at freespeech.org.
Here we go. It's 34 minutes now after the hour. We are talking like the entire nation is talking about the latest out of Ferguson, Missouri, where the National Guard was called out last night to try to restore calm to the streets of Ferguson, Missouri, after things again turned violent last night. Your calls welcome at 866-55-PRESS. And again, Attorney General Eric Holder has ordered a second autopsy on the body of Michael Brown. The first autopsy reported by the New York Times this morning shows that the teenager was shot 6 times in the front of his body, 2 of those in the head, none of them close to him because there was no gunpowder on his clothing. So the officer fired at some distance, a safe enough distance. It seems that shooting was not the only way he could have handled that situation.
Remember, you can always get in touch with the show on Twitter, at BP Show, at BP Show. We're tweeting all throughout the program and all throughout the day there. Jessica weighs in, says, what could possibly go wrong with the National Guard troops being called into Ferguson? Remember 4 dead in Ohio? Mm-hmm. Also, Gary says, and I think he's just playing devil's advocate here, he says, I agree that we should be asking questions, but still willing to listen to hear if he did attack the police officer. in his car and then charged at him. Aren't there any audio tapes that will show that?
Well, first of all, again, if he, from what the police, even taking what the police say, that the police officer started to get out of the car and the kid pushed him back into the car. So you pull out your gun and you shoot him 6 times.
Right.
But I could debate that. But what I'd rather move on to another point, which is a lot of people have said, if only we had a recording. And the New York Times yesterday, front page story, that one of the answers here may be, and more police departments are already doing it, are these body cameras that police officers are using. Now, you might say, well, there's some kind of a privacy issue here, and there is, but the ACLU, there to defend our Constitution, God love them, they've endorsed the use of these body cameras by police officers because they say it's a win-win. And when the police officer carries these, by the way, they would record all the audio and all the video of every encounter, every time.
Yep.
It's running all the time, right? ACLU calls it a win-win because they say it will protect people from police abuse and also protect the police from phony accusations of police abuse.
Right.
And there's just something about it that if you know you're on camera, you're going to behave better. The police officer will, and the people who are having an encounter with the police officer. This is just one case, but in Rialto, California. Now, the entire police police force in Rialto, California, wears these body-mounted cameras. They're no bigger than a pager, and they're usually right up here on right by their shirt collar or something, so it capture everything. In Rialto, California, since they have been in the first year that they were used, the use of force by police officers went down 60%.
Wow.
60% in 1 year, just due to these cameras. And citizen complaints against police for the excessive use of force fell 88%. So now
that's remarkable. It really is remarkable.
So it seems to me, here's one easy solution. This is better than rolling out the damn tanks, in the streets of Ferguson, Missouri, or even rolling out the National Guard.
Yeah.
No, something like this. And if we had that camera on the uniform of Officer Darren Wilson, we would know. We would know exactly what happened. We would know what this kid might have done or didn't do. We would know what the police officer said or didn't say, and what the police officer did and didn't, and whether there was any provocation sufficient to justify the use of that force. I doubt it. Seriously doubt it. I don't believe it for a second. But we would know the answer, all the questions,
point.
if we just had one of those cameras on the spot. Let's go back to the phones here. Sherry's out in Chicago, Illinois, in the great WCPT. Hello, Sherry.
Yeah, good morning, everyone.
Hi.
Welcome back, Joe.
Thank you.
I'm glad Eric Holder did what he did as far as the Justice Department goes. There's some internal information that they got pertaining to Ferguson that made him do what he did. The police department themselves must have gotten their training from the Keystone Cop writers, from that television series.
No, it's a bunch of amateurs. And
yeah, that's what I'm saying, because they have handled it just horribly from day one. As far as the military force, it's not going to scare those people. I mean, just everybody remembers, or you can go to YouTube and just check out Rodney King and just go from there. Those people are not scared, they want answers, and they deserve answers.
Right. No, I mentioned earlier, it really reminds me, Sherry, of the Rodney King riots that I lived through in Los Angeles when I was doing radio and TV out there. And you're right. It's not only that use of that military force doesn't scare people. I think it makes people even more angry and provokes more violence.
Absolutely.
And I'm glad that
that's not going to work like it did in years past.
No.
Too much has happened.
No. Very interesting column yesterday by Ross Duhat in the New York Times about that all this military equipment that the local police forces have came after September 11, when people were afraid, well, okay, if they attack New York, next they're going to attack St. Louis, they might attack Detroit, they might attack Dallas or whatever. And so all these local police departments asked for and got all this federal money to buy these tanks, right? You know, and again, it looks like Baghdad or Fallujah or Gaza, you know. I mean, and they roll these things out. You know, I saw some video last night from Ferguson, Missouri, and the street. I mean, it's all these armored vehicles, you know, moving down the streets of Ferguson, Missouri. That military presence is not good. Rand Paul came out and said that.
The line of heavily armored vehicles, you're right, look like tanks with sniper nests up top, with people, you know, handling a gun in front of a crowd of people with their literally with their hands up, saying "hands up, don't shoot," and you've got an army in front of them. Yeah, it's terrifying.
Hey, let's go out to St. Louis, Missouri. Here's Dwight. Hello, Dwight. What's the scene out there?
Bill, it's not good. I wanted to thank Free Speech TV and yourself for really telling the truth about what is going on here in St. Louis. The St. Louis County Police, the city police, they're corrupt. Then they're taking that money, like you say, to buy arms. But like they turned down the chance to buy cameras, like you suggested just a moment ago. They turned it down flatly.
Is that right? I didn't know that. Yeah,
sir. Yes, sir.
So that had been considered out there, and they turned it down. They'd rather have the tanks.
Yeah,
huh?
They got money for tanks.
Yeah, they want the guns and the tanks and all the bulletproof, you know, armored piercing bullets and everything, and it's just scaring everybody.
Do you think the National Guard is a good addition, or just going to? Yeah.
No, I think that's the wrong thing to do. I think they should have one other thing I wanted to comment on, too, is the 3 local channels here in St. Louis. They're telling a total different story. They're saying the police are right, the military's correct to bring them in. But
no kidding.
Yeah, it's totally different, and that's why I watch your show, because you guys really tell the truth, and I really appreciate it.
All right, Dwight. Well, we appreciate you being there for us, too. Absolutely. And just hope that things do calm down out there. I know. By the way, just before we move on, because we're going to be talking with Scott Bland here from the National Journal coming up next, but I have to give some kudos to this head of the Missouri Highway Patrol, Ron Johnson, who has moved in. I think he's been the one calming voice. He actually went out, met with the protesters, marched with them. Yesterday, he gave a great tribute to the family of Michael Brown. In fact, we have time. Let's play that clip if we can, Lisa. This is, again, Captain Ron Johnson from the Missouri Highway Patrol.
We all ought to be thanking the Browns for Michael, because Michael's going to make it better for our sons so they can be better black men.
That's the kind of calming presence I think we believe we need out there, and we've seen that leadership from him, no leadership from Governor Jay Nixon or the police chief of Ferguson, Missouri. Scott Bland from the National Journal Hotline standing by on the news of the day when we come back here on this Monday, August 18.
This is the Bill Press Show.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies.
In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now. Please.
A few years ago, plastic bag waste in our city came to a tipping point. It was clear. We had a bag problem. My department was tasked to reduce plastic bag consumption. We needed to come up with ways to change human behavior. So we asked ourselves,
would you like it back?
What do people really hate?
Yep.
getting punched in the stomach. Preliminary studies showed that the consequences weren't severe enough to warrant behavioral change.
Actually, can I get that double bagged?
So we thought, what do people hate more than getting punched in the stomach? Kissing Helga.
Hey, big boy.
People didn't find her so offensive after all, so we had to get creative.
How many bags? Okay, now, pour this ice water down your pants.
We tried everything.
Eat this rat. Defuse this bomb.
Even fighting your clone. After blowing through millions of dollars of government funds on research, I came up with a brilliant idea.
Why don't we just charge 5 cents per bag?
That's a stupid idea.
Would you like a bag?
Yes.
5 cents a bag.
5 cents? 5 cents? Do I still have the option of getting punched?
Honestly, I don't know how everyone else missed it.
Why don't you just get a reusable bag?
Two anti-government, self-described revolutionaries have shot up a pizza restaurant as well as a Walmart in Las Vegas.
The internationally syndicated political series, The David Pakman Show, provides progressive talk, analysis, and interviews with the nation's youngest radio and television host, David Pakman. Find out more and catch up on all the latest episodes by visiting our website at freespeech.org.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
12 minutes now before the top of the hour on a very news-filled Monday, August 18. And to help take a look at some of the other news of the day, we're joined again by the National Journal Hotline editor-in-chief, Scott Bland. Hey, Scott, good morning.
Good morning.
Always good to talk to you. Thank you. President Obama back in the White House from his vacation. What brings him back to town?
Well, there's a pretty long list of possible things that he's come back to deal with, but there's the kind of official line is that he's back for meetings. They really could be on any number of issues, but among them we've got the continued fighting in Iraq, the situation along the border, even the situation in Ferguson, Missouri, are among the things attracting his attention at this point.
And enough to interrupt his vacation and come back again for some meetings. No news conference scheduled, at least announced or anything, but more or less behind-the-scenes meetings, I guess, at the White House. We have a big... people thought the primaries were over in June, but a big one coming up in Alaska tomorrow, right?
That's right. Republicans are going to choose their nominee to take on Senator Mark Begich, and that's one of the biggest Senate races out there. There are 7 red state Democratic seats up for election in 2014, and if Republicans win 6 of them, they and don't lose any of their own, they would take over the Senate. So the stakes are pretty plain there, and it's been very interesting to watch though, because the Republican primary in Alaska has been a little more hard fought than people assumed it was going to be, and that has allowed Begich to boost himself into maybe slightly better position than the rest of his red state colleagues.
How does Begich look in the polls? I mean, he was considered a vulnerable Democrat. I guess he still is, but he's also a pretty formidable candidate on his own.
Absolutely. There's consensus at this point between Democrats and most of the Republicans watching the race that Begich has put some space between himself and his main challenger, Dan Sullivan. And there are a couple of reasons for that. First of all, we have a piece getting ready. A lot of people like to say, oh, Alaska's just such a different state. It's got and yes, that's true. There's a lot that's different about Alaska, but there's actually some very traditional reasons why Begich is doing well here. First of all, Democratic outside groups have spent a ton of money savaging Dan Sullivan already, which kind of took Republicans a little while to respond to. And also, Sullivan's caught in a more competitive than expected primary, and the combination of those two things has really allowed Begich to separate himself. Also, I think pretty much anyone watching the Senate, Democrat or Republican, agrees that Mark Begich is running the best campaign of anyone out there this year. And so those factors have combined to put him in control, at least at this point.
Another interesting Senate race that I observed of that. I guess it's final now that in Hawaii, incumbent Senator Brian Schatz has sealed that primary after they. What was it? It was a special. Well, they allowed a couple of counties to vote that weren't able to vote because of the hurricane.
That's right. There were, in fact, I think it was just 2 precincts that had still not voted because of they've been delayed because of storm damage from I believe the first tropical storm to hit Hawaii in decades, which just happened to coincide with the primary. But Schatz went into this last round of voting with a wide lead and actually expanded his margin in those last few precincts. So he is now going to get another few years to build up seniority, and probably maybe the last real challenge that he'll face, barring some scandal or something, for as long as he wants.
And generally assume that having won the Democratic primary, he will win the general election against. This is, after all, Hawaii, right?
Exactly, and it's not unheard of for Republicans to win elections in Hawaii, but Senate races being kind of more national elections, he's probably going to be there for as long as he wants to. The governor's race is actually pretty interesting, but that's a whole nother kettle of fish.
And speaking of governor's races, I saw that you had a chance to talk to Stephanie Shriak from Emily's List about the governor's race in Texas.
That's right. Shriak said that we shouldn't count out Wendy Davis yet, and she said, the race is really just getting started. They're such a big state. Davis just really started going up on TV, as did Greg Abbott, the Republican nominee, and that she said we can expect the race to get a little closer before the end. Now, I think that's pretty optimistic, and Shriak did note, she said it wasn't easy, but that. But I think it's fair to say that Davis is a decided underdog with a pretty slim chance of winning at this point. However, it is interesting to think Emily's List has a lot on the line in governor's races this year. Even though they've had a lot of success boosting the number of women in Congress, they've only elected 10 governors in almost 3 decades, and they've got another 5 up this year.
All right, Scott, we got to run along. Always good to have you with us on a Monday morning. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
NationalJournal.com, Scott Bland.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Just this month, my bill was like $138.
Even at one phone call a week cost me $40 to $50 every month.
I am living on a fixed income of SSI, so this is really a great hardship.
Families are being punished. When they incarcerate their children, they incarcerate the whole family.
In 2011, the Media Action Grassroots Network, Working Narratives, and Prison Legal News founded the Campaign for Prison Phone Justice, an effort to call on the FCC to address the cost of interstate phone calls. The campaign mobilized prisoners to send hundreds of letters. Advocates and families filled out postcards, met with elected officials, and signed petitions. Partnerships were formed across the political spectrum and with groups in the criminal justice, civil rights, and public interest community. The film distribution company Participant Media and director Ava DuVernay joined the fight through a social action campaign tied to the release of the feature film Middle of Nowhere. In an effort to push the FCC to act, the campaign hosted a historic rally outside of the Federal Communications Commission where for the first time, families of prisoners, elected officials, civil rights and faith leaders came together to call for an end to predatory phone rates.
We're all held captive when predatory phone companies gouge our families.
My son has been incarcerated now for over 10 years, and my husband estimates that in the time we spent over $25,000 on prison phone calls.
My hero's not yours, you probably arrested them. Your schools probably neglected them. They spawn thoughts, you probably infected them. Feed us what you feed us, you can lay us next to them. FBI call it major crimes. Babies making babies cry.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Justin Sink from The Hill covers the White House for The Hill, here with us at the top of the next hour.
You can imagine, Bill, that Secretary of State John Kerry and his predecessor, Hillary Clinton, probably had some conversations during the transition, right? When he took over. I would hope so. From her.
Yeah.
You'd hope so.
Yeah, right.
They'd have some conversations. They would chat on the phone. Well, they did, and Germany intercepted those calls and spied on those calls, according to Der Spiegel.
Wait a minute. No. Germany's spying on us? We're supposed to be spying on Germany.
This is an outrage! It's going to be kind of tough for us to get really outraged over it after the past.
It's the old spy versus spy.
There it is.
Yeah, we complained about it, and Angela Merkel says, huh? Now how's it feel, huh? How's it feel? Shoes on the other foot, huh? Okay, how about it?
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, how about it? It's a big Monday morning. Here we go, August 18. On this Monday morning, it's good to be back with all of you after a week in the sun on the West Coast. And we've got lots of news this morning. The focus, again, remains on Ferguson, Missouri, where two big developments overnight in that tragic shooting of teenager Michael Brown, unarmed teenager, shot and killed by a Ferguson police officer a week ago Saturday. The events over the night, Governor Jay Nixon, who does seem overwhelmed by this crisis and weigh in over his head. His latest is to call out the National Guard to try to restore calm to the streets of Ferguson. And meanwhile, New York Times reporting that the autopsy on the teenager's body shows that he was shot 6 times, all in the front of his body, and 2 of them to the head. None of the shots at close range, which again raises the question, why was an unarmed teenager who was not even close to the police officer such a threat that he had to pull out his gun and shoot him 6 times, twice in the head? Clearly a classic case of abuse of authority on the part of that policeman. President Obama is back in the White House for 2 days of meetings. Rick Perry, governor of Texas, vows to fight his indictment for abusing his executive authority, as claimed by one grand jury. And David Gregory may be out of hosting Meet the Press, but he is in the money. Reported this morning that he got $4 million from NBC for leaving peacefully and for vowing not to badmouth the network. $4 million. And reportedly, he's now in conversations with CNN. All of that we'll wrap up for you and deliver it with a bow tied around it, and then get your comments at 866-55-PRESS this Monday morning. Good to have you with us.
This is the Bill Press Show.
What gets you into college? Good SAT scores? High GPA? Lots of extracurriculars?
Sure, but what you really need is money.
If you don't have the cash, you'll need a loan.
And we mean huge student loans because the cost of college has risen 1,000% in the last 30 years.
This means big money for the banks that collect fees and interest.
Now, millions of young people are starting their adult lives with an average of $29,000 of loans on their backs.
Altogether, we're talking $1.2 trillion in student debt.
And more people are finding it impossible to pay them back. Welcome to the student debt crisis.
The increasing demand for higher education and cuts to state funding gave colleges a huge incentive to keep inflating prices.
I graduated about a year ago, currently in $35,000 of debt.
I am in debt about like $25,000.
I owe $23,000.
I owe over $50,000 in student loans.
38.8 million Americans owe money on a student loan.
And the biggest names in banking are making huge profits off the booming student loan industry. Sallie Mae, the largest provider of private student loans, made $949 million last year.
They only give you about 6 months to look for a job. You have to start paying back the loan. It's very pressuring, especially nowadays. It's very hard to find a job.
Over half of the students graduating in 2012 could not find a decent paying job.
They either had low-wage jobs or unpaid internships or were unemployed altogether.
So you can't make the payments. You start incurring late fees, which makes the loan even harder to pay off.
And it stays with you for years, even decades.
Right now, a third of the people who started repaying their loans are delinquent or in default.
That's 13.7 million people, more than the populations of Chicago, New York, and San Francisco combined.
Worse, it's not just the borrowers who are in trouble. Many loans require co-signers.
So if the student is unable to pay, that co-signer, a father, a mother, or a grandparent, is now on the hook.
Even a grandparent's Social Security benefits can be garnished to pay the loan.
We should have an answer to this. If you get really behind in your car payment or your credit cards, you can file for bankruptcy.
But Congress has made it nearly impossible to discharge student loans through bankruptcy.
Big institutions make big profits while students try to make ends meet under crushing debt.
Is this how we want our education system to work?
The whole point of going to college is to get the career you want, but lately that's been discouraged because no one can afford school. You get a job just to pay off your student loans.
We need higher education, not higher debt.
Sign up to end the student debt crisis at higherednotdebt.org.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
The latest, the National Guard detailed to the streets of Ferguson, Missouri. The New York Times reporting that teenager Michael Brown was shot 6 times, twice in the head. Police still deny there was an excessive use of force. Hey, what do you say? Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Bill Press Show this Tuesday. No, what is it? Monday? I just got back from vacation. I don't know.
It's just like the Monday of Mondays. The Monday
Wishful
after
thinking.
you get back from vacation.
The last hour was Monday. I thought this hour was Tuesday.
Oh, sorry.
That's not how it works. Boy, we could get through the week fast if we did it that way.
Right?
Mm-hmm. All right. Let's start over again. Can we start at the top? It is Monday, August 18. I knew that. I was just kidding. Great to see you today. And good to be back from vacation, although it seems like I'm not entirely back yet. We're coming to you live from our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., and our studio on Capitol Hill, reaching out to you on your local progressive talk radio station, of course, and on Free Speech TV and on our worldwide video stream, TawkrTV, as well as on our app. If you don't have a progressive radio station where you live, you can catch us by going to the TuneIn app, download it, it's free, or to iHeartRadio, where you join one of our great affiliates like 880 The Revolution down in Asheville. And good to have you with us, whether you're listening or watching. You join our team here this morning, Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy. Hello, guys.
Hey, hey, hey.
Hey, hey, hey.
Alicia Cruz got the phones. She's there to take your calls at 866-55-PRESS. Cyprian Bolding keeping us looking good on Free Speech TV and on the video stream, TawkrTV. Cyprian Bolding, enjoying his moment of fame, 15 minutes of fame now, because he's on the cover of Sports Illustrated this month. Yeah, right.
He's requested no eye contact, actually.
He's being a real...
now he wants a microphone now, too?
He wants to talk now.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Did you see the cover?
I did.
It's cool what they did. It's a montage of all these different fans who submitted photos of them with their sort of sports moment, and they made a montage out of thousands of different pictures, and Cyprian and his wife are one of them.
Yeah.
They're in one of the pictures. It's very cool.
And they're the most important one, of course.
That's right. Very prominently featured.
We also welcome a man who's here so often we almost consider him a member of we do consider him a member of the team. Justin Sink covers the White House for The Hill. And joining us in studio. Justin, good to see you.
Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Did you go to the game last night?
You know, I was up in Boston, actually, so I went to Fenway on Saturday. But
all right.
Which was nice, but I hear I missed some heroics down at Nats Park last night.
It was a good game, and the Nats ended up winning over the Pirates 6-5. Thanks in great part to a sacrifice fly by Scott Hairston, who enabled the winning run to come in. Here's how it sounded like on WJFK.
Swing and a fly ball, deep left field. Martinez backing up. He's under and waiting, and he makes the catch. Word tags. Here he comes. The throw's way outside. It's a W in the books. Bang, zoom. Scott Hairston has won it with a sacrifice fly to left field.
Yeah, man. Crowd loved that one.
Dang.
Yeah, how about it? That's the kind of game that you really want to see. Huh?
I heard they're being called the Heart Attack Nats now because they're just keep coming back late and kind of...
That's their style, though.
That's
I mean, so many times.
It's exciting, but it'll shave a couple years off your life if you're really invested in the team, man.
It really will. How about it? So, Justin Sink here with us for the first half hour. Joe Cirincione from the Ploughshares Fund will be along at the half hour to take a look at what's the latest in Iraq and in Gaza. A little bit later, we'll be joined by Wayne Slater from the Dallas Morning News and the Honorable James Clyburn from South Carolina. But first, Peter's got the big stories of the day.
Yes, indeed. Just a couple of other stories making news. Mike Vilhauer from West Sacramento went for a hike in California's Sierra Nevada mountains. That was about a week ago. He got lost with no food and no water. Good news, though, he was rescued this weekend. How was he spotted? He spelled out the word help in pine needles.
Wow.
And a helicopter spotted his SOS, came down, and rescued him. He's fine.
Wow. That was
right?
pretty creative. Yeah.
I mean, you really got to use your head out there. So he spelled out help. They saw it. It turns out he went to go on a fishing trip out there, and he got lost. He took a wrong turn and didn't know where he was. So he figured the best thing to do was to set up camp as best as he could, set up that SOS, and just wait it out.
Eventually somebody would see him.
Somebody found him.
Very exciting.
They found him, right? Would you eat this? A hot dog with Wagyu beef, black truffles, foie gras, brioche, a cheese brat, teriyaki onions, maitake mushrooms, and Japanese mayonnaise.
No.
All right. Well, then I know you definitely wouldn't pay the
I like a hot dog. I love hot dogs.
Sure.
But
Well-
before you a hot dog, just give me a hot dog with mustard and onions. Boom.
That's
period.
the correct answer.
That's it.
Yeah,
That's it.
absolutely. Well, the Guinness Book of World Records has now verified that dog that I just mentioned from Tokyo Dog Truck, a food truck in Seattle, is the world's most expensive hot dog.
And the worst.
Well, that's the thing. There are actually reviews of it, and they say it's actually pretty terrible. It's not a very good hot dog.
I don't know how mayo is involved in it. Like,
Right.
the mayo revolution needs to stop. No matter what.
Here.
Much less on a hot dog. I'm not interested in that at all.
It's $169 to get that hot dog.
Oh,
Get
my
out of here.
goodness.
From a food truck?
From a food
You
truck.
can buy the damn truck for
Wagyu,
170, for
Wagyu beef,
175.
truffles, foie gras, cheese brat, which I love they keep it dirty with that.
Yeah. No.
Teriyaki onions, mushrooms, and
No.
Japanese.
No sale.
All right. I just had to put it out there for you. And the Associated Press has put out their preseason top 25 college football teams. And number 1 is
Oh, God.
Florida State
No.
University.
Not Roll Tide?
They are number 2 on the list, Bill. Your Alabama Crimson Tide. Number 2 on the list. Number 3 is Oregon. Number 4 is Oklahoma. Number 5 is Ohio State. Not a great showing for the SEC in the top 5, although there are several others in the top 25.
All right.
There you go.
Roll Tide. All right. Thanks, Peter. Yes, indeed. I know there's a reason for that story being in the lineup this morning. Yeah, indeed. So, Justin, President Obama, he came back to Washington yesterday, but, he wasn't in a hurry to get here. Let's say he played golf during the day. Then he and the First Lady went out to a jazz concert, and then they went out to dinner.
Yep.
By the time he finally got back to Washington with daughter Malia, where's Sasha, by the way?
She is here. I'm not sure exactly where she is because they're notoriously tight-lipped, but
Yeah.
she'll be returning to the vineyard with the president on
I
Tuesday.
think she's been out on summer camp or
Yeah,
something
I
for
think
him.
that's right, yeah.
But anyway, he and daughter Malia arrived at the White House last night at about 1:45 this morning, actually.
Yeah.
When they finally got back, right? So he's up in the vineyard for a couple of weeks. What brings him back to town?
I mean, that's the sort of great mystery that we're facing right now. It doesn't make a ton of sense. The only things that they've told us is that he's got meetings scheduled at the White House. Last week they told us Vice President Biden was going to be part of it. We got his schedule.
This was set when he went up there. We were told he was coming back on Sunday and then going back on Tuesday.
Exactly. So this has been on the books for a while.
Right.
It's not in response to what's going on
Any
in Ferguson
emergency,
or
right.
Iraq, but those are the things that are on his public schedule today. Is he's got a meeting with his National Security Council this morning. He's got a meeting with Attorney General Holder this afternoon,
And then having lunch with the vice president between them. So
why couldn't he do any of this at the vineyard? I mean,
that's what I was going to ask you. I mean,
it doesn't make a ton of sense.
it's a little strange.
And
he's not coming back for a news conference. He's not coming back for an address to a joint session of Congress because they're not in town.
Yeah, it's not like there's anything going on in Washington.
So is the effort to show that he's on top of stuff and he won't even take 2 weeks vacation because he's such a working president?
Well, I mean, that question was even posed both to Josh Earnest a couple weeks ago and Eric Schultz up on the vineyard last week, and they insist no, it's not because he feels pressure, or criticism because he's taking this extended vacation. They say, he does have all the communications equipment that he needs up in the vineyard, but that he just wants to have this.
Susan Rice, National Security Advisor, was on the vineyard, so he doesn't have to come down here to meet her. Eric Holder, the Attorney General, was on the vineyard. He doesn't have to come down here to meet with him. I'm puzzled by it.
I was kind of expecting we might hear about a foreign leader visit that was coming. That would be a surprise.
Yeah, I mean, you wrote 5 reasons Obama might be coming back to Washington.
Yeah.
A foreign leader might be, but that's not
It doesn't
happening.
seem to be the case. Another kind of theory that was floated out was that this was all kind of a head fake, that the president might be headed over to the Middle East, because they notoriously don't tell us about that ahead of time, in an effort to kind of bolster security. But he
understandably,
showed up, right? He showed up here at the White House last night, so
he's not in Baghdad.
Yeah, exactly. It might be something to do with the daughters. I mean, they've been away for lots of the summer. So we know Malia just turned 16 back in July, and maybe she needs to go get a driver's license. You know.
So we might see the president at the DMV today?
I wouldn't rule it out. I mean, I back in the Clinton years, it was... Bill famously took Chelsea out driving at Camp David to try to teach her. The First Lady has said that she doesn't think the Secret Service will sign off on the president and Malia, driving down the streets of Washington. But it remains kind of a big mystery why the president is back in town.
But at the same time, there is a lot on his plate right now. I mean, if you add to Iraq. Right, if you add Iraq to Gaza, right, to
Ukraine,
to
Afghanistan,
to Afghanistan,
to what's going on in Ferguson. I mean,
to the border. Let's not forget, right,
of course,
which continues, and then on top of that, you throw in Ferguson.
And he's supposed to be coming up with some executive actions on inversions and immigration reform and all that stuff for when Congress comes back, and he's got a little bit of a window before the midterm election. So this has not been a very relaxing vacation for the president, I don't think. And
do we expect to hear from him today at all?
I would not be surprised. There's a big kind of hole on his schedule after the meeting with Attorney General Holders pretty early, I think like 1:15 this afternoon, and that leaves a big window in the afternoon. There's no press briefing. It would make a lot of sense, especially with the events that happened in Ferguson last night. It really seemed to escalate again, and clashes got more and more violent. To hear the president come out and speak in some way about that. He did speak last week from the Vineyard on Ferguson, but that statement was pretty reserved. I mean, it said, we're going to have the Justice Department look into it. Spoke a little bit about sort of the animosity, but not to the extent that we heard, for instance, after the George Zimmerman verdict, where he came out and he spoke at length about both his reaction to the verdict and his sort of understanding of some of these underlying racial tensions and the historical reasons for them that were informing kind of real, genuine anger.
Unusual for a president of the United States to get so involved in a local police matter?
Well, I mean, not for this president of the United States. We've heard him weigh in. You remember back when the Harvard professor was Lewis Gates, was arrested, and that kind of blew up and became controversial. But we've also, as I mentioned, heard the president kind of weigh in on the Trayvon Martin incident, and it's unique to have an African American president, and so in a lot of ways that gives him kind of a unique bully pulpit, not just as president, but as somebody who can, I guess, traverse both worlds and speak about that.
I am surprised that he hasn't been more vocal.
I think we can expect him to come in and say more, because
the
local authorities have really botched any investigation, and I think more and more calls for the feds to take over the investigation. Department of Justice, now they're going to have their own conduct their own autopsy.
Yeah.
Eric Holder has told local police to get the tanks off the streets.
Yeah, and I mean, last night certainly I was watching this on Twitter as things were developing, and there seems to be an increasing number of calls and for the president to show up himself there. I would be very surprised if that happens, both because he is on vacation and will return to vacation, and so that would be a huge disruption, but also because the White House has always been reticent to send him into developing situations, whether it's after kind of a disaster like a hurricane or a wildfire or something like that, because they're really wary of detracting resources from the incident at hand, and so I'd be surprised if that happens. I would not be surprised if we hear kind of directly from the president.
And the other thing is on Iraq. I mean, no troops on the ground, no boots on the ground as a president, but the United States presence in Iraq has really increased and expanded.
Well, we saw over the weekend the White House sent a letter to Congress informing them that they're expanding the mission again. So originally it was these sort of dual operations. One was to protect the city of Erbil, where the U.S. has a consulate. This is kind of the capital of the autonomous Kurdish region there. The other was to help these sort of refugees that were trapped up on a mountain. They've been successful in saving those refugees. They've been successful in kind of pushing ISIL back from the kind of Kurdish regions, but now they are expanding that mission to launch airstrikes against ISIL, who holds the Mosul Dam. And this is like a really critical infrastructure project that, if used incorrectly, could either deprive huge swaths of Iraq from water, including Baghdad, or if they kind of destroy the dam, it could end up flooding a huge part of the country, which would have kind of catastrophic consequences. So the administration's made the case that this is a really critical kind of national security issue, and that they're trying to go after it. And but it's another expansion of what's going on in Iraq. And so for the administration, I think that they're going to have to answer more and more questions about mission creep and what's going on there.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. Justin Sink with us from The Hill, covers the White House for The Hill at 866-55-PRESS. Your questions or your comments, always welcome. And when we come back, the White House hoping to pivot and talk not about all these issues we've been talking about, but about the economy and about income inequality, and make that the focus of these midterm elections in 2014. Can they succeed in doing so? We'll find out from Justin when we come back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job, and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand, and they don't get it, and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university? And,
people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Here we go, 27 minutes after the hour. Joe Cirincione on the foreign policy front coming up from the Ploughshares Fund in the next half hour. Right now we're visiting with Justin Sink. Justin, we just have about a minute left. So you've written about the White House wanting to focus the 2014 elections on the economy.
Yeah, I mean, this has been something we've heard from the White House back since January, but I think the latest sort of avenue in will be there's a big expectation that there'll be some sort of executive order on inversions, which is when companies buy another company overseas and shift just on paper their operations
to avoid paying U.S. taxes.
Exactly. And so the administration's searching for ways to either stop that practice or pressure companies out of doing it. And for the White House, there's lots of advantages. They can kind of both talk about the economy, but boogeyman these corporations that are seeking to avoid taxes. And so there's, I think, a lot that they can kind of play around with to try to refocus attention.
And another case where certainly Congress won't do anything about it, so it have to be done by executive action. Hey, Justin, great to see you. Always good to run into you at the White House, and thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
This is the Bill Press Show.
When I started learning about nutrition, about which, by the way, much less is known than you might think, I learned that what mattered most about one's health was not necessarily the nutrients, good or bad, that you were consuming or staying away from, or even the calorie counts. But what predicted a healthy diet more than anything else is the fact that it was being cooked by a human being and not a corporation. Corporations cook very differently than people do. They use vast amounts of salt, fat, and sugar, much more than you would ever use in your own cooking. And the reason they do that is those are three incredibly attractive and incredibly cheap ingredients. And when they're layered properly, as in a chip or pastries and forms of junk food, they're incredibly addictive. They really press our buttons. They activate our dopamine network, our cravings. And in fact, people in the industry, they don't talk about addiction in the food industry, even though they traffic in addiction. They talk about craveability. It's the same thing. And snackability is another term they use. It's a lovely word. And then the last point about corporate cooking that's important to understand is they cook different stuff than you do at home. What they're good at, in general, they don't cook that well, but things like chips, they cook incredibly well. And here's a classic food that if you make it yourself, if you've ever made French fries, you have to wash the potatoes, you have to peel the potatoes, you have to slice the potatoes, you have to fry them in a lot of oil, you have to spatter your entire stovetop, you have to clean up, and then you have this pot of oil you have to get rid of. I mean, it's really difficult, and it's a pain. They're wonderful, but it's a pain. And if you make them yourself, you'll only eat them every 6 weeks, 2 months, because it's too much work. But when you let corporations cook for you, it's so simple and so inexpensive, and they're really good, that you will have them twice a day, as many people in America do. So you see the kinds of foods you end up with are these labor-intensive foods and desserts. These special occasion foods become everyday foods when we let industry cook for us. Eat anything you want, just cook it yourself.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Two anti-government, self-described revolutionaries have shot up a pizza restaurant as well as a Walmart in Las Vegas.
The internationally syndicated political series, The David Pakman Show, provides progressive talk, analysis, and interviews with the nation's youngest radio and television host, David Pakman. Find out more and catch up on all the latest episodes by visiting our website at freespeech.org.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
All right, 33 minutes after the hour on a Monday, August 18, booming out to you live from our nation's capital on our studio on Capitol Hill. The world is a mess, says former Secretary of State Madeleine Albright. The only person who can clean up the mess we know is Joe Cirincione, head of the Ploughshares Fund, back from a week's vacation, as am I. Joe, it's nice to see you.
Nice to see you, Bill.
We plan our vacations, right.
Yeah, when things are quiet, not much happening.
Right. That's a good time to get out of town now because, God. I mean, when you look at, things are a mess right now, aren't they? Almost everywhere you look on the globe, there's some hot spot demanding attention.
This is actually a bigger issue. Things are complicated. There's lots of pots boiling over. But mess is a relative term. I mean, compared to what? Compared to 10 years ago, when we had 1,000 U.S. troops a year dying in Iraq, compared to 100 years ago, when World War I had just broken out. So mess is a relative term. We shouldn't get too carried away with the idea that we have challenges to face.
That's a very good point. Right.
Thank you.
I mean, things have been a lot worse. In the middle of 10 years ago, we were in the middle of two big wars, Afghanistan and Iraq.
Yes, yes.
And now, are we back to war in Iraq?
Well, a week ago, when you and I left on vacation, the ISIL forces, or ISIS, depending on the acronym
I don't get this. Let's just
agree on one.
Let's just agree on one, right?
Well,
we all say ISIS. The White House says ISIL. I mean, why can't we agree on what
in the territories
them?
they hold, they're known just as IS, the Islamic State. So, but anyway, the Islamic radicals.
What are we going to call them on this show?
I said we go ISIS. I like ISIS.
ISIS. It's the acronym I've been using.
All right, good.
ISIS,
we all agree.
ISIS.
That's the correct answer. Whatever Joe says.
So when we left on vacation,
all right, Barack, you got it. No more ISIL.
Message delivered.
Right.
Okay. So when we left, they were threatening the Kurdish city of Erbil. They had, and the forces had scattered there. They had just taken control of a major dam on the Euphrates River that controlled 60% of the water supply of the area. Well, Obama stepped up his interaction with the rebels who were fighting ISIL. He started airstrikes just over the weekend. It's been a good turn of events for the U.S. and for the people of Iraq. They were beaten back. The Kurdish forces have retaken the villages on the perimeter of Erbil, so they're less threatened now. And it looks like the fighting outside the dam may retake the dam from ISIS in the next couple of hours.
So we have our Air Force now, or our Air Forces, right, attacking the ISIS forces and destroying their equipment, which
they got from us.
Exactly.
When they overran Iraqi army
positions. That's the irony of this to me, right?
This is part of the threat.
We're now destroying the material that we gave the Iraqi army, which the Iraqi army surrendered to ISIS.
That's exactly right. Good
Lord.
And we, over the last few days, there have been more airstrikes than previously, some 14, according to the Washington Post, including perhaps the first involvement of a B-1 bomber flying from a base in the Middle East.
All right. So, Joe, we're in Iraq again.
Well, I think I got to like the way the president is handling this, despite the criticism he's gotten. This is a measured interaction. It's true. We've now stepped up the advisors. We have about 1,000 advisors. Remember, there were only 300 a few weeks ago, so there's over 1,000. The airstrikes are directed. They're focused. They seem to be turning the tide of battle. The advisors have been directing the coordinated attacks on ISIS from the Iraqi forces, so the Iraqi army is back engaged, and the Kurdish forces. So it's paying some dividends here. No U.S. loss of life, very little involvement, no combat action on the ground. If he can if he can hold this course of action, it's hard to argue with it.
ISIS still controls a lot of territory, however, correct?
Yes, they do.
Right, and we can't win that territory back uniquely from the air.
No, you can't. No, you can't. You need boots on the ground, and those boots are not going to be ours. They're going to be the Kurdish fighters. They're going to be the Shia fighters. They're going to be the Iraqi army.
Right.
And
meanwhile, politically, right?
Exactly.
A turn of events, which is very helpful.
Very helpful. One of the problems we've had is the former Prime Minister, Maliki, had pursued such a sectarian line and had been so corrupt over the last, almost a decade now, that he had exacerbated the religious differences. The corruption and the armed forces led to the collapse of divisions when ISIS first entered into Iraq. He's gone. Mm-hmm. We have a new prime minister, still from the same party, but one who's promised a less sectarian style of government. This makes it easier to unite some of the factions. We may be able to bring some of the Sunnis back into the fold. The people who support ISIS depends on. Without the Sunni leaders supporting ISIS, I think ISIS could be rolled back.
And the president has said that the only long-term answer in Iraq is to have a coalition government where the Sunnis are part of the government, and they come together, Sunnis and Shiites, against the Islamic extremists.
Exactly. He's very clear on this. Despite some of his domestic critics, there is no U.S. military solution to this. We can only help the Iraqis do it, and that requires their political unity.
I was struck by the fact that Maliki says, I'm going to hang in there. And both the United States and Iran said, we like the other guy better, right?
This is
they both endorsed the from al-Abadi.
Yes, they did
over Maliki.
Well, this is a very interesting development. The U.S. and Iran are, I don't want to go too far with this, but de facto allies now in Iraq. Iran was the strongest backer of Maliki, even when we were trying to replace him. They've switched. They are freaked out by ISIS, just as we are. So you're seeing a tactical, shall we say, alliance between the U.S. and Iran starting to operationalize itself in Iraq.
So what is Iran's interest here?
It's
self-interest, I guess, but...
Well, Iran is a Shia country surrounded by hostile Sunni Arab nations. They're interested in preserving the Shia character of Iraq. So, and they don't want it to be sectarian. So it was reduced to 60% of the former territory. They'd like to see Iraq united under Shia rule.
Who's supporting ISIS?
Well, the
Syria?
They got their start from some of our other allies in the Gulf, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, UAE, who were originally funding these rebel forces. Now they may be largely self-sufficient. They are making money from some of the cities they've seized, selling oil, for example. Interestingly, Assad, the ruler of Syria, is stepped up his attack on ISIS because he's fighting them in Syria. More attacks on ISIS over the weekend than we've seen Assad taken in quite some time. So ISIS is being hammered from both ends, inside Syria and now in Iraq.
We don't hear much about Syria anymore. It's sort of gone off the radar.
Yeah.
Which means that Assad has strengthened his position.
It's actually sort of a World War I position. The forces are stuck in place. Nobody's gaining territory. Nobody's losing territory. There's no clear winner. Status quo prevails.
But he's still there.
He's still there, ruling over about 40%, 50% of the territory of Syria.
And looking at other hotspots, I've lost track. Are we in or out of a ceasefire now in Gaza, and how long does this one last?
A very critical period. So today is the end of a 2-week ceasefire that we've had. So it's been relatively quiet, a few rocket attacks, nothing much. We'll have to see what happens. Do they both extend? Israel is insisting that Hamas has got to make concessions in order for the ceasefire to continue. Hamas wants Israel to make major concessions, which are quite unlikely. So it's a very tense day on the Gaza Strip.
Are we playing any role there anymore at all?
It's only we're backing Egypt. Egypt has emerged as the truce broker. So the talks are taking place in Cairo. The Egyptian government, under the former ruler of the Islamic Brotherhood, was strongly pro-Hamas. But in the last year, since the generals have come back to power, Hamas has lost their support. Hamas is actually pretty isolated in the region. Even during the slaughter that was happening, 2,000 people killed in Gaza, very little support from the Arab states.
Well, I mean, they're considered, even among the Arab leaders, a pretty destructive, negative force, right?
Yes.
Not good for the cause, if you will.
Not good for
Hamas.
the cause. That's right. A radical Muslim offshoot that they get lumped in with the Muslim Brotherhood that continues to even more radical factions. So the status quo forces, the Arab Sunni monarchies, are not backing Hamas, and apparently took some quiet pleasure seeing them get pummeled by Israel.
But back to these talks in Cairo. It is unusual, isn't it, that the United States is not the real broker here. It's not John Kerry. It's whoever the foreign leader is of Egypt.
The Israelis have indicated their displeasure with American efforts to broker a peace, as the Prime Minister told John Kerry secondhand just last week. Never second guess me again. Prime Minister Netanyahu delivering a message to the United States. The U.S. has sort of backed off with the standard policy of, look, we can't make a peace. The two sides have to agree to make a peace. Let them talk it out.
Yeah, boy, let's hope that they do. The destruction that we've seen. I mean, this nonsense of firing these rockets endlessly into Israel, as if that's going to get Hamas anywhere, right? And then the destruction, the loss of lives you see in the Gaza Strip. I mean, it's just the whole situation is.
There does not appear to be a winner. Hamas certainly hasn't weakened Israel. Israel has not crushed Hamas. A lot of people have died. It's unclear why and what has been accomplished.
And when we come back, Joe Cirincione here from the Ploughshares Fund. You welcome to join the conversation, of course, at any time at 866-55-PRESS. Do we see a little split between a former Secretary of State and the President of the United States over foreign policy? Or are people just trying to drive a wedge between Hillary and Barack Obama? We'll get into that with Joe Cirincione when we come back. Join the conversation again anytime at 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Two anti-government, self-described revolutionaries have shot up a pizza restaurant as well as a Walmart in Las Vegas.
The internationally syndicated political series, The David Pakman Show, provides progressive talk, analysis, and interviews with the nation's youngest radio and television host, David Pakman. Find out more and catch up on all the latest episodes by visiting our website at freespeech.org.
The most important issue on this planet right now is to protect and conserve biodiversity in the world's oceans. And I don't think people realize just how intimate our connection is with the oceans themselves. Not only do they provide the very foundation of life and control our weather, but life just simply could not exist without a healthy ocean. The real problem, though, is apathy. It's all out of sight, it's all out of mind, and people don't even think about it. But it doesn't matter whether you live in Peoria or on the coast. The fact is, whatever happens in the ocean affects all life forms on the planet Earth. If the oceans die, then civilization collapses. We all die. We cannot live on this planet without the oceans. This is, in fact, not the planet Earth. It's the planet ocean, but because we're a land-dwelling species, we refer to it as Earth. But it is the planet ocean, and the oceans are the heart and the foundation of all life on the planet.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
At 12 minutes before the hour, in the next hour, we'll talk to Wayne Slater from the Dallas Morning News and the Honorable James Clyburn from South Carolina. Joe Cirincione is with us from the Ploughshares Fund, ploughshares.org, P-L-O-U-G-H, ploughshares.org. We always remind you. We can't miss the, I want to get into this little interview that Hillary Clinton gave about Barack Obama's foreign policy. But first, in the Ukraine, any improvement there?
Yes. Over the last couple of weeks, the Ukrainian forces, their military seems to be getting its act together, more and more capable attacks against the rebels, retaking towns, retaking cities. It looks like they have the rebels on the run, but it's not over yet. You have a 200-truck convoy from Russia on the Ukraine-Russia border, claims to be humanitarian aid. The Ukrainians will not let it in, so we could still see a crisis boil over on the Ukraine-Russia border.
But they also, the Ukrainian forces caught Putin with his pants down, sort of, in terms of they hit a convoy coming in, right, with equipment.
Yes. Yes, there was
right from Russia, so they couldn't deny that they're still supplying the rebels or the separatists, whatever you want to call them,
with arms, including some heavy arms. So you've seen some convoys of tanks and heavy artillery still moving in rebel-controlled areas.
Meanwhile, they're going to get away with shooting down that plane, aren't they?
Nothing's happened. nothing's happened. The rebels have shot the plane down, and it's hard to hold a
Unbelievable.
rebel group
Unbelievable.
accountable.
Yeah.
It's amazing that when you mentioned that, I had to. I didn't trigger right away. Oh, that's right. I totally forgot.
Yeah. Shoot down a commercial airline with, what was it, 285 people killed?
Well, one of the consequences was that it really isolated Russia completely and made it much more difficult for Russia to make the case of backing the rebels. So it has pushed back the rebel cause, and they may be punished by losing their territory, not by some international legal remedy.
Okay, so what's going on with Hillary Clinton? So the president names her Secretary of State, gives her this great job for 4 years, and then she turns on him?
Yeah.
Is this the thanks you get?
Well, you know the saying, if you want a friend in Washington, get a dog. So apparently we thought relations were very good. Hillary still insists that the interview was not a criticism of Barack Obama, but almost everybody's interpreting it that way. It's hard to know whether this is a political move, whether, as Maureen Dowd said, whether Hillary has to show that as a Democratic woman she can still be tough on defense, so she's making these kinds of comments, or whether it represents a genuine political, ideological difference. I think it's a mixture of both.
Well, this was an interview she gave to The Atlantic.
To The Atlantic, Jeffrey Goldberg, and she said, she once again went back to the issue of Syria. When pressed on this issue by Jeffrey Goldberg, she said, well, I was in favor of arming the rebels. If we had acted 2 years ago, we wouldn't have the situation we have now. And then she took a direct shot at the president. The president's motto in the White House has been, don't do stupid stuff. That's what he said, and she took issue with that, saying don't do stupid stuff is not an organizing principle. A great power needs an organizing principle the way we had during the Cold War against the communists.
Mm-hmm. This is the woman who voted in support of the war in Iraq?
It is, and it always raises questions about what her organizing principle would be. She didn't present an answer, just level the criticism, but seems to be, like George W. Bush did, equating the struggle against terrorism, which was, remember, George W. Bush's organizing principle, war on terrorism, with her guiding principle here. It's unclear she will be slipping into the kind of military adventures that George W. Bush did.
And that vote for the war in Iraq is what got her that's why she's not president of the United States today. I'd have to, in terms of 2008.
Big part of it.
That was a big issue with her, the big difference between her and Barack Obama.
Yeah.
So she wants to go back there?
Well, there was some stories about the
I'm not running her
neoconservative
campaign, but I don't think the way to win is to go to the right.
Yeah. Yeah, certainly doesn't have the party with her on that issue. Certainly doesn't have most of the American public, which, however critical they are of Barack Obama, they actually approve of his foreign policy stances. They don't want us to get more involved in Ukraine or Syria or Iraq. They want us out of Afghanistan. So the actual steps he's taking are the ones the American people support. It's hard to see how Hillary Clinton can make political capital out of that.
And you see, I promised you that by the end of this half hour, the world would not be such a mess as it was a half an hour ago.
Steady as she goes. We can take care of these things. We're still a great power. It's complicated, but we can do this.
And I thought the president, by the way, made a lot of sense. It might have been, some people thought it was defeatist when he said, we are the most powerful nation on the planet, but we can't control everything that goes on in the world. That's really true.
Yes, it's really true. And it's been a lot worse, folks.
And good to remember. Thanks, Joe. Thanks so much. Welcome back. Good to have you back.
Thanks.
And I'll be back to tell you what the president's got on his agenda today back in Washington.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Hey, 2 hours is never enough. We always need that third hour, and too bad we're going to lose you on Free Speech TV. But we encourage you to go over to our worldwide video stream, TawkrTV. Stay with us with the news of the day, and coming up at the top of the hour, we'll talk to Wayne Slater, one of the best political reporters in the nation, down at the Dallas Morning News about the big indictment of Rick Perry. And then we'll be joined by Congressman James Clyburn from South Carolina, with his comments and his suggestions on what we should do to calm things down in Ferguson, Missouri, and what should happen to that police officer. All of that coming up, hour number 3 on TawkrTV.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I probably would make a time machine. I would make medicine for the sick. I'd probably invent something new. If I could have an extra 5 years to live. You said 5, right? 5 years. It's a long time.
I would try to fix everything I did bad.
I would bring my uncle back because I miss him very much.
I would get more hamsters.
I would probably want to go looking for dark matter. I think I'd go looking for aliens. If I could live an extra 5 years.
I was thinking about making like a helicopter, like a wooden helicopter, but I don't have any wood.
I want to go check out the moon sometime.
I'd probably teach my sister not to hate tuna.
I would try and invent a machine that lets you run at light speed.
If I had 5 more extra years to live.
I would be the boss of all the chipmunks.
Eu cantaria na frente de 1 milhão de pessoas. I don't really know. I think I'd do anything.
Why are you asking me that?
This is the Bill Press Show.
Hey, excited in the next hour to talk to Wayne Slater from the Dallas Morning News about the indictment of Governor Rick Perry and the chances for Wendy Davis, governor of Texas, and also then talk to the Honorable James Clyburn about the situation in Ferguson, Missouri. Meanwhile, the president is back at the White House for 2 days. Today, he's got several meetings behind closed doors, gets a presidential briefing at 10 o'clock, followed by a meeting with the National Security Council for an update on the situation in Iraq. He and the vice president have their weekly lunch today, and then the president meets with Attorney General Eric Holder. There is no press briefing scheduled, no news conference scheduled.
This is the Bill Press Show.
There's hundreds of fun and simple things you and your family can...
Piston fan. Their slogan was, "We come to work." That's what Detroit about. That's why they used it. It's a team thing. They won 2 championships, a team. There was no star. No mayor can come in here and be a star. It's a team thing. No governors can come in here and think you can do it by yourself. It's a team thing. You got communities. They got ideas too. The only thing wrong with Detroit, people have lost hope here. Residents, city workers, so much corruption, they lose hope. But I grew up here. I love this city. I think it can come back. I've been working for the city 24 and a half years. Within the last 10 years, we took 4 pay cuts. And then an additional 10% wage cut. I've lost a home.
when you take all of the decisions out of the city of Detroit, all of us, then what do you have? Exactly what we got. A lot of problems. Every time the city seems to fall into a problem, it's always on the backs of us workers.
You wake up out of a dead sleep and you jump behind the wheel and take off driving and try to get everybody there safe, not knowing really what you're pulling up to. Not eligible for Social Security, so the pension is my sole salary at this point.
We've been in business here 39 years. We've seen a lot of changes in Detroit. The area was a lot of industry, a lot of city workers. It's getting very tough for the city workers. It's getting tough for us as a business people.
Response times are increasing because of the closing of companies, which takes your insurance right through the roof. So all the things that affect us affect the citizens.
I worked for the city in different capacities for 29 years. I feel like an old jacket. They use me up and they throw me away. In my condition, nobody's gonna hire me. I'm 68 years old. Half the times, I can't get my blood pressure medicine. It's either feeding myself blood pressure or paying bills.
$754. By the time they take all the deductions for I have my car insurance, my house insurance, and my health insurance taken out. So the time they take all that, I'll get about $300 after they take all that out. I don't understand it. I can't see how the governor is allowing this to happen and what they're doing and they want to blame it all on the seniors. Not only the seniors, but the city workers. And we worked hard. I know I worked hard.
I've been in Detroit since 1946. I was 14 years old when I came in. I don't live large at all. I wish I could. I don't know when the last time I've been shopping. I only get $1,100, and I'm 81 years old, and I need every penny that I can get and that I do get. And I'm very, very upset about the idea of them taking away my pensions that I worked 30 years for.
I think it's terrible that they talk about Detroit like they do, because Detroit has been very good to me.
I have a lot of city workers coming in with their uniforms on, Detroit Water Department, Police Department, Fire Department. I get a lot of people, the Border Patrol come in. So if I lose that customer base, I'm going to be in a position where I might have to close down. If they take away their pensions, if they start cutting jobs, it's going to cut into a large percentage of not only our business, but other businesses that are in the city of Detroit. We're here. We've been here for 26 years. We're still trying to do business in the city.
Detroiters are survivors. They tough. They adapt. But only can do so much when your politicians are ahead of you and we're not on the same team. We're not going to let Detroit be erased, bulldozed to where we're going to fight to the bitter end. Detroit going to survive.
The most important issue on this planet right now is to protect and conserve biodiversity in the world's oceans. And I don't think people realize just how intimate our connection is with the oceans themselves. Not only do they provide the very foundation of life and control our weather, but life just simply could not exist without a healthy ocean. The real problem, though, is apathy. It's all out of sight, it's all out of mind, and people don't even think about it. But it doesn't matter whether you live in Peoria or on the coast. The fact is, whatever happens in the ocean affects all life forms on the planet Earth. If the oceans die, then civilization collapses. We all die. We cannot live on this planet without the oceans. This is, in fact, not the planet Earth. It's the planet ocean, but because we're a land-dwelling species, we refer to it as Earth. But it is the planet ocean, and the oceans are the heart and the foundation of all life on the planet.
broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Shot 6 times, according to the New York Times, and the preliminary autopsy. Teenager Michael Brown shot 6 times, twice in the head by police officer Darren Wilson. The latest news out of Ferguson, Missouri. Good morning, everybody. It is a Monday, August 18. This is the Bill Press Show. We are coming to you live from our nation's capital with the news of the day. Here in Washington, D.C., around the country, and around the globe, we've got it covered. We'll tell you what's going on and look forward to hearing your comments at 866-55-PRESS. Here in the studio with us. By the way, good to be back with all of you after a week's vacation, and a big thank you to our lineup of Carl Frisch and Clinton Yates and Elahi Azadi, Sabrina Siddiqui, and Peter Ogburn. Takes a village to fill in for me, and that's the village, and they all did a great job, and we thank them. And I'm sure you appreciated their good work. Good to see you again, and back with the team of Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy. Hello, guys.
It is nice to have you back.
Very nice to have you here.
I'd like to say it's nice to be back. Alicia Cruz got the phones covered at 866-55-PRESS, and Cyprian Bolding, fresh from the cover of Sports Illustrated magazine here, our videographer. By Sports Illustrated, and you can find him on the cover if you look very, very, very carefully.
Yeah. He's on there, though.
But he's got us looking good on our video stream worldwide at TawkrTV, TAWKR-TV. Just a quick update before we move into more news of the day. Again, Ferguson, Missouri, the report of that autopsy in the New York Times this morning, certainly adding fuel to the case of excessive use of police force. The report that Michael Brown was shot 6 times in the front of his body, twice in the head, and there were no gunpowder, traces of gunpowder on his clothing, which means he was not shot at close range. And last night, more violence leading to the calling out of the National Guard, as announced by the head of the Missouri Highway Patrol, Captain Ron Johnson.
As a crowd approached the shopping center, multiple Molotov cocktails were thrown at police. At that time, police deployed tear gas in an attempt to disperse the crowd and stop the violent action.
And the National Guard called out at that point. The latest is the family of Michael Brown is scheduled to have a news conference. Do we have a time yet for that?
I don't see a time yet, no.
Some time this morning to comment on the autopsy report. And Attorney General Eric Holder has ordered a second autopsy conducted by the Department of Justice. We're going to be talking with Wayne Slater from the Dallas Morning News about the big indictment of Governor Rick Perry of Texas, whether that's going anywhere. And a little bit later, the Honorable James Clyburn from South Carolina will be joining us to get his comments on the situation in Ferguson, Missouri. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Big news of the day.
Other stories making news. Yes, indeed. It's the Battle of the Owls, Bill.
The Owls?
The Owls. The Owls are battling it out in court. The 2 owls are Al Gore and Al Jazeera.
Oh, that owl.
You remember when former Vice President Al Gore and owner of CurrentTV is one of his other job titles. They sold CurrentTV.
Our former boss.
Our former boss.
Al
we
Gore.
should say.
Yes, right.
Well, they sold CurrentTV to Al Jazeera for a large chunk of money. Well, Mr. Gore and some of his other former shareholders of the company claim that Al Jazeera America is trying to retain $65 million of the purchase money. It's Mr. Gore and Joel Hyatt, also formerly of CurrentTV, who are going to battle with Al Jazeera. So we will see exactly what the case is, but there's a little bit of bad blood in that deal, it looks like.
It's about a year ago, right?
It was...
I remember. I think it was January 2013.
Yeah.
When they pulled the rug out from under us and sold CurrentTV. We'll see how that goes.
The toughest man in America might be this unnamed 24-year-old in New York. He was shot in the head while he was driving. His car veered off to the side of the road, and hit some trash cans before he stopped. The man got out of the car and walked to the hospital.
Wow.
Being shot in the head. He is fine, by the way. His injuries are not life-threatening.
Whoa.
But, he said he couldn't drive anymore, so he just walked himself. Makes sense, right?
Pretty resilient.
I'll say. I wouldn't want to tangle with him.
No. And this is a first, Bill.
A first?
In the WNBA, their star, Brittany Griner from the Phoenix team, is now engaged to her girlfriend, who also happens to play for another team in the NBA. Her name is Glory Johnson. She plays for the Tulsa Shock. Griner proposed to Johnson during a break in one of the games. So they're playing each other.
Oh, my goodness.
And she proposed in the middle of the game.
That's cute.
So you never they're competing against each other, and they're also going to be married.
Yeah.
Aww.
No, I think there's a little. The purpose of the engagement was to throw her off and distract her.
That's a good point.
Right.
Always getting ahead of the opponent, even if you're
part of the head game. Exactly. Right. Okay. Thank you, Peter. 12 minutes now after the hour. Yes, indeed. Rick Perry, in fighting form, came out yesterday and said about this indictment, "Look, I did the right thing," he says, "and I stand by it."
I exercise this authority to veto funding for an office whose leadership had lost the public's confidence by acting inappropriately and unethically. I wholeheartedly and unequivocally stand behind my veto.
Yeah, doesn't sound like a man who's going to run away from this Wayne Slater. When I heard about this, I said, Wayne Slater, he must be so happy to have this news to write about and talk about down there. Texas politics is always so much fun. Senior political writer for the Dallas Morning News, joining us on our news line again this morning. How you doing, Wayne?
Hey, I'm doing great. Bread and circuses in Texas are happy.
Yeah. So, I mean, this seems like almost a gift to Rick Perry, the way he's been able to play it, no?
Well, look, he's doing what he needs to do, and he's doing it very, very well. The first thing he needed to do was frame this as politics pure and simple.
Yeah.
And I think he's very, very effective. And in the context of that, he's got some stuff upcoming. One, as early as today, he's going to have a mugshot taken. And there is the delay rule in Texas, and that's what Tom DeLay did when he was indicted, and that was when you stand for your mugshot, smile. Yeah. So Rick Perry needs the mugshot of the governor is going to move faster on social media than a squirrel on water skis.
Get ready. Yeah, it's coming.
So let me tell you. So you smile, you make it look like a campaign brochure. Here's something.
And you wear those new glasses.
And wear the glasses, as Bagala tweeted. Bagala tweeted, "Do these glasses make me look innocent?" That's basically what he tweeted the other day. The other thing that you might look for in this very effective, I think, response by the governor, you frame this complex legal argument, a couple of three legal theories in this argument, which incidentally, Bill, I agree with other folks too, including many Democrats down here who privately say it's not going to be easy to make this case, as you would expect. But one of the other things I think Perry is going to be doing in the days ahead is on Thursday he's scheduled to address the Heritage Foundation in D.C., a previously scheduled event on immigration. On Friday and Saturday he's going to be in New Hampshire. Next week in South Carolina. Last week, of course, he was in Iowa. And look for a new word in his response and in his spirited defense of himself. That word will be Obama. Somehow he has to connect Obama, not because the indictment. I know, this is a state proceeding, but his charge is that these are Democrats who are coming after him for political reason, i.e., these are Travis County, that's Austin, these are Austin Democrats, i.e., these are Obama supporters.
Whoa. Well, if he makes that link, I mean, more power to him.
Yeah, honestly, I'd be more impressed than annoyed.
but I want to come back to the essence of this indictment, which, again, even to me as a lifelong Democrat, seemed a little far-fetched. I mean, the governor may not succeed in taking all the funding from this, but it is a state agency, no? I mean, where's the meat here? Where's the beef?
It is not a state agency, but it gets state funding. So if that's what you want to call it, it's a state agency. It is the Travis County District Attorney's Office, which has been responsible for some 30 years with looking into corruption in Austin. That is to say, if politicians and so forth in Austin are doing things wrong, this is supposedly an independent agency, the Travis County District Attorney's Office, which gets some state funding to assist in this process. Republicans have been after this agency for a long time. And so this was an opportunity when the district attorney got caught for drunk driving. She gave Republicans and Rick Perry a perfect opportunity to come in and say, hey, and so she shares some, if not blame, certainly some responsibility in this whole process. I want to repeat exactly what you kind of said. It's not illegal for a governor to veto anything. And frankly, he can do it for almost any reason that he wants.
Sure.
Even if a governor doesn't like somebody, doesn't like a state senator, well, veto the state senator's project, so what? That's hardball politics, and we, in a cynical way, we admire that. Here's another way to look at this. One, because Perry has made the very strong legal case, I think, a very strong political case. Here's a legal argument. It is legal to veto a bill and money. It is also legal to ask, force, or demand that an elected official quit office.
Right.
It may not be legal to link money to muscle a political opponent who's been elected by officials out of office. Think about two things that happened yesterday when Perry appeared on Fox News. One of them was he said, "This is politics." Yeah, you're darn right. It's politics. This is a political argument, but there is a problem with Perry's political argument in this case, and that's that basically Republicans were involved. He's not being prosecuted by the Democrats. The special prosecutor was a cop who served as a assistant U.S. attorney under George Herbert Walker Bush in his administration. He has the support, or had the support, of Senator Kay Bailey Hutchison and John Cornyn, both Republicans, when he was considered to be a U.S. attorney. Secondly, when Perry said these are the kinds of things that ought to be settled at the ballot box, and that's what he said yesterday at Fox, a lot of people say yes. So why were you trying to force an elected office out of office? Wasn't the right way to deal with the fact that she was a drunk driver? Let the voters of Travis County, if they don't like her, either call her out of office or vote her out of office.
Will there be a trial?
Oh, yeah, baby. Oh, yeah. You can't say, this is great.
You're licking your chops. And this will be in Austin?
I doubt it.
Yeah.
I got to think that the attorney, he's got to do these things to make it look like a political case and essentially make his argument in the court of public opinion. Then once he gets to court, I'm sure his attorney, he's got a very, very good defense attorney, trial attorney. And I'm sure they're going to try to move the case. Nobody said that, but you would want to move it out of Travis County if possible. And Perry's job now is to move this as quickly as possible, because every time he's in Ohio or Florida or New Hampshire, South Carolina, he's going to have his name for the next several months attached to the word indictment. That's never helpful when you're running for the White House.
Right.
Although he's trying to make lemonade out of lemons, and he's done a really good job with this. Still, all things being equal, it's better that's not the case. Get this thing out of the way. Be declared innocent. Be an innocent person. Blame Obama. Blame the Democrats, and frankly, he can be fine by the end of next year, but he's got to move on this fast.
Got it. Yeah, I got to tell you, it's so much fun to watch, and particularly fun to watch it with you. I got to ask you, Wayne, what's the latest on the governor's race down there, and where are we?
Well, the most recent polls show that the Wendy Davis still behind, but she's narrowing the Greg Abbott lead, the Republicans lead. The campaign has been fairly successful, it looks like, in a micro way, with a series of ads and attacks on Greg Abbott, who has sided, when he was on the Supreme Court in Texas, in favor of companies and against women who had been assaulted and raped in cases. He had a legal argument to make in this case as a conservative, protecting businesses and property owners and garage owners and so forth. But it doesn't look good in this case that in 4 specific cases he divided with many members of his Supreme Court in saying, I side with business and against women who have been assaulted.
Yeah. And finally, just quickly, everybody's been commenting on the situation in Ferguson, Missouri, including the freshman senator from Texas.
Yeah. Well, I thought he's been fairly careful. You may not think he has been.
I thought his comments were on Ferguson were very careful. I mean, defending the journalists there and saying journalists.
That's what I meant. Oh,
yeah.
Okay. I was going to say, I thought his comments were really good. I'm a little queasy about this stuff, making this about journalists, even though those reporters were in the right. I think it's. I think Ted Cruz understood that we're his friends here in the media, and we're here to help him. Incidentally, one last thing. This is all Texas, baby. Brittany Griner, who's going to get married.
Oh, yes. Right.
She's Baylor, the Baylor Bears.
That's right. Yeah.
We claim her as a Texan.
Good. Excellent.
I'm telling you, this is a Texas Hour here on the Bill Press Show. Well, Wade, just keep sending us more material from Texas. We love it, baby.
We're happy. Good to talk with you.
All right, you too. The circus, bread and circuses down in Texas. Wayne Slater, nobody knows it better. For the Dallas Morning News, senior political writer and a good friend for a long time.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Don't look at me. Your hair's a bit frizzy today. Aww, you should pick that up. Oh, you're such a dork, loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look, your crush is looking at you. Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach your kids how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
Here at the GED Pep Talk Center, we have pep talkers standing by to get you motivated for your GED diploma. Text the name Terry to 69222 for a sympathetic pep talk.
You show people what you really are.
Or for a gentle pep talk, text the name Deborah.
You know you're going to make people very proud of you.
And if that's not enough, text the name Danny for an extreme pep talk.
Prove everyone wrong. Show them you're the boss.
Get your GED pep talk and find free GED classes. Text the name of the person you want a pep talk from to 69222.
Did you see the world differently? Did you celebrate the victory?
So today, I state clearly and with conviction America's commitment to seek the peace and security of a world without nuclear weapons.
who stand up against our greatest threat. Did you commit to change the world?
This is the Bill Press Show.
It's 27 minutes after the hour now here on a Monday morning, August 18. The Bill Press Show. We are in Washington, D.C., our nation's capital. President Obama came back to town last night from his vacation up in Martha's Vineyard. He'll be spending today and tomorrow meetings at the White House and returning to the Vineyard tomorrow evening. Last night before he left the Vineyard, yesterday, he managed to get in a game of golf and a jazz concert last night, and then dinner, and then took the late night flight. I think he got the last Southwest Airlines flight.
He got the last one, huh?
Into Baltimore.
Yeah.
And arriving back at the White House at 12:30 this morning, if you will. When we come back, we're going to talk to the Honorable James Clyburn from South Carolina about the situation in Ferguson, Missouri. The other news item of the day is that the founder of WikiLeaks, Julian Assange, announced this morning that he will soon be ending his 2-year exile, self-imposed, in the Ecuadorian embassy in London. We don't know what that means about where his next stop might be. It could be a courtroom in Sweden or
This
Moscow.
is the Bill Press Show.
So this is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. When I say dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
It's 33 minutes after the hour now here on a Monday, August 18. The Bill Press Show coming to you live from Washington, D.C. Good to be back with you after a week on the left coast and picking up with the news of the day. No story capturing the nation's attention more so than in Ferguson, Missouri, where it was announced this morning, early this morning, actually, Missouri time, that the National Guard has been called in to help calm the situation down in Ferguson, Missouri. And the New York Times reporting this morning that the preliminary autopsy on the body of Michael Brown showed that the young man had been shot 6 times in the front of his body, 2 of those shots in the head, one of which was the fatal shot. Still raising the question of excessive use of police force. We wanted to check in on this situation with many members of Congress, even the President of the United States, commenting on the situation in Ferguson, Missouri. Joining us on our news line, the Honorable Jim Clyburn, representing South Carolina's 6th Congressional District. Mr. Congressman, good to have you with us this morning.
Bill, thank you so much for having me.
You know, we think we've had made so much progress in racial tensions and in on the situation of race in this country. What is your reaction when you see an unarmed black teenager shot 6 times by a white police officer in Ferguson, Missouri?
Well, once again, thanks for having me, Bill. So, I think that one of the things that we seem to continue to get wrong in this country is the fact that these institutionalized actions and reactions do not occur in a vacuum. Mm-hmm. Just because we see an isolated incident boiling over in Ferguson, Missouri, involving young African-American males, you've got to really be a little bit touched if you don't see that has a relationship to what is going on with discrepancies in sentencing, what's going on with taking away voting rights, all the things that seem to be going on in this country at various institutional levels. The Supreme Court, the Voting Rights Act, legislatures passing oppressive and suppressive legislation, and reacting in this way. Now, I mean, you've got things simmering, and they've been simmering for a long time. If you've got enough goodwill built up, these things tend to be contained. But if there's no goodwill, and if you are always constantly on edge, then there is no room. There's no reservoir upon which you can draw any goodwill. And so that's what's happening here. And I don't understand it. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that I learned my elementary year in college.
It does all tie together. Clearly, Congressman, the local police force seems over their heads on this, and unable to control the situation. Then they called in the state police. Now they've called in the National Guard. Do you think there's a role for the federal government, the Department of Justice, in this incident in Ferguson, Missouri?
Absolutely. You know, way back when this incident first got national attention, and there was some discussion about calling the National Guard, I said at the time that the National Guard should be drawn in and should be nationalized. And so I'm sure I was on what is the process. The National Guard was nationalized, and I think they're saying the same thing. Little Rock was integrated because when called out the National Guard, Dwight Eisenhower promptly nationalized the Guard and took over the thing at the federal level. I think the same thing happened around 61, 62. I think Kennedy once nationalized the Guard and took it over at the federal level. That is the way for the federal government to get involved in this. They've now called out the National Guard. If I were advising the president, I would ask him to immediately nationalize the National Guard, or federalize the National Guard, and take over this investigation.
Do you believe that if you were advising the President of the United States that he should go to Ferguson, Missouri to help calm the waters there?
Not at this point. I think that what he should do is work to create a better climate. And first, you've got to stop the hemorrhaging. That is what you have to do in an incident like this. Get things calmed down, get things stopped, and start a rebuilding process. And I think the president it would be good for him to be a part of the rebuild and reconnecting. But to walk out there now in the middle of this, that is not the role or a situation I think a president ought to get involved in.
There's an interesting article in the National Journal this morning, Congressman, which caught my attention. And the headline is, How Congress Helped Create Ferguson's Military or Militarized Police. We've certainly seen heavy armored equipment on the part of the local police force here that looks like a scene out of Baghdad or the Gaza Strip. And this article points out that the Pentagon has distributed 432 mine-resistant armored vehicles to local police departments since 2006, plus 400 other armored vehicles, 500 aircraft, and 93,000 assault rifles. Is this an issue, the militarization of local police departments, you feel that Congress ought to be looking at?
Absolutely. I did a television show from Martha's Vineyard. I was up in Martha's Vineyard Friday and Saturday. And on Saturday, I said at the time, in fact, in preparation for the show, I called Congresswoman Marcia Fudge, who chairs the Congressional Black Caucus, and I talked with Bennett Thompson, who is a ranking member on the Homeland Security, and I asked him, I said, look, man, what is the protocol here? How are all these things get into the hands of these policemen that become toys for them?
Yeah.
And he told me that it was the federal, it's part of their surplus property thing.
Yeah,
they get these things at no cost, and these people are ill trained for them, and they're just looking for opportunities to go out and show them off. And that's what happened on that first night. These guys are going out there. I've been to Afghanistan. I've been to Iraq, and I'm telling you, those guys look like the kind of, in fact, the patrolmen I saw, people patrolling in Iraq didn't look like those guys.
No, exactly. I mean, you see those scenes, and you think they were from a war zone.
There are some pictures out there of veterans who have put up what they were wearing when they went into Iraq, wearing a helmet and just a flak jacket, and they had their rifle next to a picture of the police force that was on the ground in Ferguson with so much more gear. Yeah. So much more gear. They were so better equipped to handle a violent situation than the troops we sent into Iraq.
Absolutely. You may recall early on in the war, there was a lot of pushback from soldiers saying that they were not well equipped for what they were being asked to do. And if you remember this mine resistance vehicle, we call it the MRAP. I know that the vehicle very well. Many of them are made in my congressional district down there in North Charleston. I've been in them. I've toured two facilities that make MRAPs, and I'm going to tell you, those vehicles have no place on any street in the United States of America unless we're being attacked by some farm. But it certainly shouldn't be under the auspices of local law enforcement. Those are vehicles designed for war, and they were specially designed. That V bottom on the MRAP is designed for mine war.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So, who was planting in the mines in the middle of the streets there in Ferguson, Missouri? I mean, this is just a misapplication of what those vehicles are for, and why. And I know why they did it. The federal government is just taking these things off the inventory. Get rid of them.
Yeah.
I would much rather see those things stockpiled than sitting out here in the hands of ill-trained, ill-equipped police officers.
Well, I think that's an issue on which left and right can agree, and we'll hear more about it. Now, Congressman, I can't let you go because you slipped something in there that you were at Martha's Vineyard last Friday and Saturday. There was another famous American up there in Martha's Vineyard Friday or Saturday. Now, did you happen to get a round of golf in with the president?
No, I didn't. I did. I was there, but I had a book signing up at Martha's Vineyard on Friday night.
Yeah,
which is my reason for being there.
All right. I don't know, because I know you played golf with the president before. I just had to check.
Yes, I have, but I didn't on this weekend.
All right. Very good. Okay. Well, congratulations on the book again. We've talked to you about it here, and I'm glad you had an event up in Martha's Vineyard. And Congressman, thank you for joining us so much this morning.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Congressman James Clyburn. Very interesting what he had to say about the militarization of the police. This is something Rand Paul has spoken out about too, and it's true. You know, those numbers. Think about that. Since 2006, this all came from September 11, right?
Yep.
And we hit New York, right? They hit New York, and then everybody said, "Oh my God, they might hit Dallas next, or St. Louis." And so we got to give these local police departments anti-terrorist weapons.
Armed to the teeth.
Armed to the teeth. Since 2006, 432 mine-resistant armored vehicles, plus more than 400 other armored vehicles, 500 aircraft, and 93,000 assault rifles handed out by the Pentagon. As Congressman said, they're not paying for this. They're just giving them away. Hey, we got all these extra toys here. Let's give them out to the local police department. And then they show up on the streets of Ferguson, Missouri, which makes things worse, not better. Let's talk about this. 866-55-PRESS. What do you think is the answer in Ferguson, Missouri? Should the federal government, as the Congressman suggested, should the president nationalize or federalize the National Guard there? And what about the use of these body cameras, which are used by many other police departments today, which the St. Louis Police Department turned down if they had one of these body cameras, might we really know the answers to what happened in the altercation, if there were one, between Officer Darren Wilson and teenager Michael Brown? Your questions, your comments, 866-55-PRESS, or send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show.
This is the Bill Press Show.
What gets you into college? Good SAT scores? High GPA? Lots of extracurriculars?
Sure, but what you really need is money.
If you don't have the cash, you'll need a loan.
And we mean huge student loans because the cost of college has risen 1,000% in the last 30 years.
This means big money for the banks that collect fees and interest.
Now, millions of young people are starting their adult lives with an average of $29,000 of loans on their backs.
Altogether, we're talking $1.2 trillion in student debt.
And more people are finding it impossible to pay them back. Welcome to the student debt crisis.
The increasing demand for higher education and cuts to state funding gave colleges a huge incentive to keep inflating prices.
I graduated about a year ago, currently in $35,000 of debt.
I am in debt about like $25,000.
I owe $23,000.
I owe over $50,000 in student loans.
38.8 million Americans owe money on a student loan. And the biggest names in banking are making huge profits off the booming student loan industry. Sallie Mae, the largest provider of private student loans, made $949 million last year.
They only give you about 6 months to look for a job. You have to start paying back the loan. It's very pressuring, especially nowadays. It's very hard to find a job.
Over half of the students graduating in 2012 could not find a decent paying job.
They either had low-wage jobs or unpaid internships or were unemployed altogether.
So you can't make the payments. You start incurring late fees, which makes the loan even harder to pay off.
And it stays with you for years, even decades.
Right now, a third of the people who started repaying their loans are delinquent or in default.
That's 13.7 million people, more than the populations of Chicago, New York, and San Francisco combined.
Worse, it's not just the borrowers who are in trouble. Many loans require co-signers.
So if the student is unable to pay, that co-signer, a father, a mother, or a grandparent, is now on the hook.
Even a grandparent's Social Security benefits can be garnished to pay the loan.
We should have an answer to this. If you get really behind in your car payment or your credit cards, you can file for bankruptcy.
But Congress has made it nearly impossible to discharge student loans through bankruptcy.
Big institutions make big profits while students try to make ends meet under crushing debt.
Is this how we want our education system to work?
The whole point of going to college is to get the career you want, but lately that's been discouraged because no one can afford school. You get a job just to pay off your student loans.
We need higher education, not higher debt.
Sign up to end the student debt crisis at higherednotdebt.org.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
It is 11 minutes now before the top of the hour, Monday, August 18, here on the Bill Press Show, talking about the situation in Ferguson, Missouri. There's so many aspects of this. As we've reported, the National Guard was called in last night. Congressman James Clyburn just telling us he thinks the president should federalize the National Guard and basically take over the situation in Ferguson because local authorities have really done such a poor job of restoring order there. Also, the New York Times reporting this morning that the results of the preliminary autopsy show that teenager Michael Brown was shot 6 times, twice in the head, by police officer Darren Wilson. Two related issues here before we get to your calls, and I see a lot of you want to comment on this at 866-55-PRESS. One is what we were just talking with the congressman about, the militarization of local police forces, which I hope is an issue that Congress will deal with, and the Pentagon just giving away all these weapons of war and vehicles of war to local police departments. I mentioned the numbers in the last segment: 432 mine-resistant armored vehicles. I mean, we really think that these protesters in Ferguson, Missouri, were planting mines under the streets of Ferguson, Missouri?
Really.
I mean, hello. Since 2006, in addition to 400 other armored vehicles, 500 aircraft, and 93,000 assault rifles, even though, as the National Journal reports this morning, violent crime in the United States has dropped 48% in the last 20 years. So we're giving all this military equipment out to local police departments, even though they got less violent crime to deal with. It just doesn't make any sense at all.
Look at the different results you got, right? So when this first started out, and there were some people who were protesting, most of the protests originally were peaceful.
Yeah.
And you look at what happened. They bring out all these tanks and these armored vehicles and tear gas and all this stuff. And then the moment that they brought in Captain Ron Johnson from the Highway Patrol, he's talking to the protesters, he's engaging people, he's answering questions, he's walking with them. Everything was okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's reverted back, but, at least there was some communication there instead of just guns.
Let's say hello to Catherine out in Madison, Wisconsin. Hello, Catherine. Thanks for joining us.
Last night I watched live coverage from Tim Pool, Pool. I saw it on YouTube. He had two women on one side of the street. He was on the other. At around 10:30 Ferguson time, he was waiting for the press conference, and he was with a reporter who had another reporter with him at the beginning of the march.
Mm-hmm.
He saw the footage. He said there were no Molotov cocktails. They gassed them in the front. When they were away from the crowd, the two reporters were gassed, and they also gassed them from the back. I also saw that they were going into the neighborhood and throwing out canisters, and telling people to go home, but making it impossible to cross that boulevard to be able to get home, and making them afraid that if they went, they were going to get gassed or they were going to get shot.
Yeah, I got to tell you, Catherine, I didn't see that video, but it all reminds me, I mentioned this earlier, it reminds me of the Rodney King riots that I lived through in Los Angeles, and when I was doing TV and radio out there, and a lot of the violence we saw was in response to violence on the part of the police departments, and we're seeing it again in Ferguson, Missouri. Not over, and I'll have a final parting shot on that when we come back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
It is possible to read the history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America. In other words, who, according to our laws and culture, gets to be considered a person? The law creates legal personhood, and movements create law and change culture. So, how have the courts passed laws to shape our culture? That history goes way back before Citizens United. 1819, Dartmouth College versus Woodward, Supreme Court case, turned a corporate charter from a government-granted charter to a contract. This ruling gave corporations standing within the Constitution. 1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. Though the court did not rule on corporate personhood, the decision was subsequently cited as a precedent to hold that a private corporation is entitled to the same 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection as human beings. This makes it impossible for us to make laws that treat local businesses any differently than giant multinational corporations, even if their business practices are deemed to be harmful to workers, the environment and communities, or if they have a history of violating the law. Hale versus Henkel, 1906. The court granted corporations the Fourth Amendment search and seizure protection. Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, 1919. The Michigan Supreme Court says the business corporation is organized and carried on primarily for the profit of the stockholders. Stockholder primacy is established. The purpose of the corporation, according to the court, is no longer to serve the public good, as it had been. It is now to maximize profit for shareholders above all else. Pennsylvania Coal Company versus Mahon, 1922. Corporations get the Fifth Amendment takings clause, meaning if you pass a regulation that impacts a corporation's ability to make a profit, that is deemed a taking, and they can sue for the right to future profits lost. This creates a chilling effect, and local and state governments become much more hesitant to pass laws in the public interest for fear that corporations can claim loss of potential profits that cities and states will be on the hook to pay. Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. The Supreme Court rules that spending money to influence elections is protected under the First Amendment, in effect saying that money is speech. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010.
Today, the Supreme Court of Chief Justice John Roberts declared that because of the alchemy of its 19th century predecessors in deciding that corporations had all the rights of people, any restrictions on how these corporate beings spend their money on political advertising are unconstitutional.
The court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation. It's a rejection of the common sense of the American people.
The Parting Shot with Bill Press. This is the Bill Press Show.
Well, you know, when you're on vacation at the beach in California, away from the daily paper, the internet, and the TV, not much in the way of news filters through unless it's really big news and bad news, which is why even on the beach in California, you couldn't escape the bad news out of Ferguson, Missouri last week. The killing of unarmed teenager Michael Brown by a Ferguson police officer shocked the entire nation. Even President Obama expressed his concern, and for good reason. First, because there's no excuse for shooting an unarmed kid. That's a clear case of excessive use of police force. But second, because the Ferguson Police Department, as we've been talking, responded to citizen protest with such a massive show of military force that it looked like a scene from Iraq or the Gaza Strip. You know, an investigation into Michael Brown's death is underway, but we need another investigation too. An investigation into whether or not local police departments really need all that military hardware. And I think we heard from Congressman James Clyburn this morning that such an investigation will be underway in the United States Congress under his leadership. That's the show for today, folks. Have a great Monday. We'll see you back here again tomorrow morning.
Is the Bill Press
Have a good
Show.
one.